I'm Lodging Editor Kate Hughes. Thank you for tuning in to Lodging on Demand. For this episode, I spoke with two insurance experts about how COVID-19 has affected this area of the industry. Hoteliers are scrambling to keep up with a rapidly evolving COVID-19 situation. One area, though, where they should be focused is on their insurance coverage and what exactly their policies cover. Today, we're joined by Steve Figlin, Senior Vice President of Young Adjustment Company, and Jay Levin, Principal at Offit Kurman, to discuss what hoteliers need to know about insurance in the age of COVID-19. So, guys, the COVID-19 crisis has turned so many industries on their heads. What impact has it had on insurance since the crisis hit a few weeks ago? Steve, how about we start with you?
Well, it's thrown the insurance industry into a tailspin trying to figure out what insurance policies are designed to cover and not cover. Typically, property insurance policies that cover fire, flood, hurricane, windstorm, and other perils are designed to cover property damage and business income and other eccentric losses as a result of a trigger, the trigger being some form of property damage. In today's world of the COVID-19 issue, the issues that are popping up start out with identifying what represents physical damage to property and whether just the appearance of the virus in the area constitutes this type of physical damage or does not. That has implications in all business income portions of the insurance coverage. It has implications in the civil authority portions of insurance coverage, which all look for the trigger of some form of property damage. So the first thing that's important for every hotelier, person in the hospitality field to be able to understand is what exactly is in their specific insurance policy. Have they been able to read the entire policy from end to end, not just some summary that they've gotten from a broker or an insurance company, but the actual policy to see if the language comports with anything that could provide them with coverage? So much of what's going on today in terms of litigation that we see that Jay can talk about in the news media is all aimed and linked at this issue of physical damage at this point in time.
The carriers, I think, are bracing themselves for the inundation of claims that are going to be coming. And I think, as Steve pointed out, business interruption claims are going to be the first. And I've already seen, I think it's 5 different complaints. 4 of them were filed before there was even a coverage position taken by a carrier. And then 1 recently just filed on Friday in Illinois by a group of hotels and restaurants and movie theaters, was filed after their insurance company denied coverage almost immediately after receiving the claims. And as Steve pointed out, the key issue under property insurance policies is going to be whether the insured can prove that the shutdown and business interruption resulted in the first instance from covered property damage. Because under most insurance policies covering property and business interruption, the trigger for the coverage is insured property damage. And without that, you can't really get to your coverage. The mere fact that you're shut down by the government doesn't necessarily trigger your coverage. So what we're seeing is a situation where you have hotels are shutting down because people aren't traveling and no one's coming in. They have occupancy rates of 10% or less, and they just shut down. You also have orders of civil authority. Governments are shutting everything down, saying you can't gather. But what they don't necessarily have is actual exposure to the virus and actual physical loss or damage caused by the virus. And I think the insurance companies are gearing up to fight these claims on that basis from day one, because what I'm seeing in some of my cases is that insurance companies are pulling back. because they're focusing on the potential for COVID-19 cases, and they're very concerned about cash preservation because they don't know what's going to happen to the economy, and they don't know what is going to be going on. And frankly, they're worried that a lot of their policyholders aren't going to be able to pay premiums. So what they're doing is they're looking at the potential exposure, which the economic losses from this virus are probably going to be in the trillions of dollars over the whole country. And they are going to fight these cases tooth and nail as much as possible so that they don't end up holding the bag for these gigantic losses.
The current statistic that came out this morning where insurers are worrying that the potential in the small business industries as a potential loss to them of a potential loss value of over $380 billion a month, which would eat into reserves. I think some statistics say that the insurance industry has $800 to $900 billion of reserves to pay current claims based on their current operating models. They're deathly afraid that they could be put in a position of not having adequate resources to pay current claims, let alone claims coming in the future. As a result of which, it's heating up as going to be a battle of definitions in insurance policies, definitions in restrictions or exclusions. One of the things that hoteliers should be very aware of is that not every insurance policy is identical to every other insurance policy. There are many, many policies issued with somewhat standard forms. Some of the commercial property policies and business owners forms that will insure smaller hotel operations are written on standard policy forms that have an exclusion that was developed in 2005, 2006 after the SARS epidemic to specifically exclude losses caused by communicable diseases and viruses. But there are a plethora of policies that do not have that type of exclusion that are going to fall back on the issue that we just discussed of physical damage and whether this constitutes physical damage or does not constitute physical damage. So the one overriding theme is to be sure to be able to have someone review and read the full policy, not just some summary of the policy. But really the considerations for a hotel or a hotelier that has a catering business or has some banquet facility or has event facilities or conference facilities maybe to look at other coverages that could exist in their policies for things like event cancellation coverage, for coverages that may pertain to things beyond the basis of the policy. Some insureds will carry some forms of inland marine coverages that are broader, don't have the same prescriptions for coverage that property insurance policies have, and again, need to be looked at very, very, very carefully. The question comes up today, what should I do about presenting a claim to the insurance company? And there are restrictions and limitations in the insurance policy that talk about when you're supposed to notify an insurance company of a claim. And it's supposed to be done as close as possible to the occurrence. It's not possible to wait a year or 2 years out to see what happens with litigation before you present a claim to the insurance company. So the first things to think about are, was I affected by the virus? Do I have the possibility of physical damage? Am I shut down because of that or because of some civil authority action? And should I now report a claim just to have something on the record so that if there's a positive determination in the industry, that I can at least present my claim and take advantage of it? The claim may not have to be quantified at this point in time, but may be made of record so that at least there's some protection going forward, keeping in mind that all property insurance policies have suit limitation restrictions. It may be 1 year, it could be 2 years, depending on jurisdiction. It can be longer than that. That would give an insured, an owner of a property, the opportunity to wait and see what the industry does in response to this before having to decide whether they need to spend a great deal of time and effort with litigation and costs.
Steve's comments reminded me of what I always call rule one of any insurance coverage situation. Read the entire policy, particularly commercial policies, and particularly for most hotels. They are long. They are filled with different forms and different endorsements, which change the forms. And you have to read the whole thing from cover to cover, which leads me to rule two, which is see rule one, read the entire policy so you know exactly what you're dealing with. I agree with what Steve said. It is better to put the insurance company on notice of a claim or potential claim early and let the insurance company either deny, as happened in this case in Chicago, or investigate. And that way, at least they have the option and they can't claim they didn't give notice. Because in this type of situation, with everything moving so fluidly and things changing so rapidly on the ground, it will be, I think, in some ways easier for an insurance company which doesn't get notified for, let's say, 3 months or 6 months when things are getting back to normal, to say, well, you should have notified me early on. I would have done A, B, and C, and I would have gotten information that's no longer available.
How do you guys see this event changing the insurance industry? Because so many people might not be covered in the case of an event like COVID-19, especially after the SARS crisis and they implemented these new rules. Do you see it changing further because of COVID-19?
No. The insurance industry responds very well to all kinds of catastrophes under normal circumstances. They have the capacity to handle floods. They have the capacity to handle hurricane losses. After Hurricane Sandy, there were some 3 million claims that were filed around the country following Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Katrina. The possibility here is that there could be 30 million claims being filed because of the number of policyholders with commercial policies. But the industry is designed to be able to respond. The problem here is that there's nothing that they're going to step up and respond voluntarily to. The way it's going to change the industry going forward is that someone, meaning an insurance company or companies, is going to come up with a way to rate and charge a premium to add coronavirus or virus insurance to future insurance policies, so that if it happens again down the road, they'll have gained the opportunity to earn revenue to offset potential losses. It's going to take them some time to figure out what that exposure is and how to charge a premium for it. And it could be pretty expensive for people to be able to buy that kind of coverage, at least at the initial phases. If the claims come in the volume that it looks like they could come in, that has a tendency to possibly overwhelm the industry and slow down the processing of all kinds of claims, including ones that are currently on the books.
I think that the industry is not going to change as a whole, because I think that it will not provide coverage for the vast majority of these claims, so that financially it is not going to be dramatically affected. Too many policies have virus exclusions. Too many policies have other kinds of exclusions and restrictions and limitations. So I don't think that insurance is going to actually help people through this crisis, except in very limited cases where someone happened to have a very broad coverage that might apply. But they paid a premium for that. I know that New Jersey, for example, was considering a statute that would have effectively required insurance companies to cover business interruption losses caused by COVID-19. That legislation is stalled for now, and I don't know that that kind of legislation will ever have the desired effect, because it would have the ultimate effect of rewriting the contracts, the insurance contracts between the companies and the policyholders, and there are constitutional prescriptions about laws that do that. But other than that, I think that the only real impact on insurance companies is going to be their ability to deal with claims simply because of volume, because unlike even disasters such as Katrina or Sandy or Florida hurricanes, where you're relatively limited in geographic scope, this is going to be a nationwide problem, all within a relatively narrow time frame. So the staffing needs will be sorely pressed, but they'll simply handle it as best they can with whatever resources they can bring to bear. But I think financially they'll be fine, and I think they will fight every attempt to expand their coverage tooth and nail. To the extent that you find courts opening up the policies and ruling that, for example, a virus exclusion doesn't apply or some other limitations don't apply so that you don't need physical loss or damage to be covered and have physical loss or damage to trigger business interruption, that might lead to dramatic changes in the insurance industry because they would end up paying claims for which they never collected a premium.
The other side of the insurance industry, Kate, is that the insurance industry is a heavily leveraged financial entity, a series of financial entities. Because this virus has caused the economy to take the nosedive that it's taken over the past month or two, interest rates are low, investment income has changed dramatically. The unintended consequence may be that they turn around and start to look for ways to increase their premium revenue to offset losses that they're going to sustain in other financial markets. And that could end up costing policyholders, hoteliers, people in the food and entertainment business, higher premium dollars as we go forward. The markets have been pretty soft because the investment markets have been good for the past couple of years. But when that softens, the insurance industry looks for higher premium volume to be able to offset investment income. That's a potential, but it's not something that anybody should worry about just now. The thing they need to worry about is keeping their business afloat and looking for ways to be able to at least find some revenue sources to be able to make up for what they're losing in their regular revenue. It's going to be a very tough time for the hotel industry for an extended period of time. It's going to take it a while to come back. It also means that hoteliers, people in the hotel and lodging business, should not cut back on their insurance coverage because they have buildings that are less occupied that may be prone to more other physical damage issues because they don't have regular occupancy. They need to be careful to make sure that they don't trigger any vacancy or lack of occupancy clauses in their insurance policies that could cause a glitch or a vacancy in their coverage or some type of an issue with their coverage. They need to make sure that their alarm systems are maintained. They need to make sure that their sprinkler systems are maintained because there are warranties and requirements under most insurance policies where those systems exist that the insureds must maintain them, can't turn them off in order to protect the property from being damaged by things other than the virus. And that's a caution for all in the hotel industry to make sure that their physical plants are at least supervised and maintained even in the absence of a heavy customer base.
If the listeners to this could walk away from our conversation with one thing, what would you like them to take away?
This is Jay. The most important thing is, A, get all your policies together, determine which ones are potentially applicable, and give prompt notice to the insurance companies. In terms of proving a claim, to the extent that there is actual exposure to the virus in a property, document it. To the extent there are orders from local authorities, try to get copies of them and keep copies of them. Keep financial records and make sure that if you are going to be making your claim and if you are able to get coverage or potentially get coverage, you can document it. I think the CARES Act that just passed in Congress and various state acts that are trying to help support various industries provide for grants and loans. You'll need a lot of these documents for those applications, and you should apply quickly. And then, finally, as Steve said, protect your property. Be careful that you don't lose coverage if something completely unrelated like a fire or a theft happens, because you do have to make sure that you protect your property.
I agree, and what I would point out is these couple of just pointers in terms of the virus-related issues. Jay pointed them out well, but just as a couple of bullet points, if you will. Was your business affected by the virus? Were employees sent home because of a diagnosis of the ailment, of the illness? Were guests who were in the hotel sequestered or sent home that way so that you have the potential of a physical issue relating to the property? Or was the shutdown as a result of something that was related to something not on your property? Did a vendor not be able to supply you? There are contingent business interruption forms in many policies. Did the virus cause physical harm to the property? Did you have to come in and do a deep cleaning or some type of sanitation or special disinfecting? The cost of that should be kept as a record for whatever future claims may be. Does the policy have a virus exclusion in the policy? Does it have a civil authority protection that could be triggered if property damage is determined? Do you have contingent business interruption? Some contingent business interruption could be an effect as a result of another property affecting your property. You may be connected to a mall. You may be connected to some shopping center that's shut down for some other reason, something to look at. But most of all, it's the property damage and virus exclusions that need to be carefully looked at. And as the takeaway, it's to maintain the safety of your property, the safety of your employees, and document everything that you can about what has affected your business so that if you're making a claim, you have the appropriate support.
Well, guys, thank you so much for making time to speak with me today, and thank you for lending your expertise.
You're welcome.
It is our pleasure, and good luck to everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you for listening to Lodging on Demand. For more content like this, please subscribe to our channel.